today by our special guest and our friends. We're going to be joined by Ty Jager, and we're also going to be joined by Noah Magaro George, who is a contributor to Pounding the Rock, and Ty himself, he's a contributor to the Spurs Zone for News for San Antonio. And you also are working over there with our good friend, Jeff Garcia, who actually sent Ty a gift, and that was quite humorous, watching Ty battle the tape in the box today. That tape was strong.
Tape. I swear to God, that tape. I don't know how much tape, because Jeff even said that FedEx put a lot of tape on that box. There was maybe like 3 or 4 different layers of tape on that.
How do you know that wasn't Jeff? Maybe Jeff did that.
I don't know. It could be Jeff. He could be messing me. I don't know. But I can just say that what I was trying to. Also, I was trying to record that in the span of the Twitter like time limit of like 2 minutes and 20 seconds, and so I'm like, I'm trying to get it open quickly. I was like, fucker, you won't open. Why will you not open?
You almost cut your hand trying to open up the box.
No kidding.
Yeah, but you did have some goodies, so thanks, Jeff. And then Jeff was saying that he had sent me a surprise too, and he did. So I got a notification. He sent me a little something in my PayPal. So thank you, Jeff. I appreciate you, man. He blessed both of us, Ty.
Yeah, big time.
That's like, thanks, Dad. All right, let's go ahead and get on subject here. So, guys, what we're going to talk about is we're going to go ahead and recap what was going on with the San Antonio Spurs via free agency news and some of the signings that they some of the guys that they brought back, let's just face that, and some of the smart moves that they made. Let's start with the one important move that they made, and that was re-signing one Jakob Poeltl. He got a team-friendly deal, or he gave us a team-friendly deal here, hometown discount, 3 years, $27 million. To me, it was a great steal, a great value for the Spurs, because I actually thought that Jakob, once he hit free agency, he was going to command a bigger price tag, somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe 10. It could have gone up. Maybe some team got desperate and wanted to offer him 15 mil. If that was to happen, the Spurs could not match that. I'm glad that Jakob is satisfied playing here in San Antonio and wants to be a Spur. I welcome him back with open arms. So we'll start with you, Noah. What did you think?
Great signing to bring back Jakob, especially for that amount of money. Because I think when we look down 2 years from now, we're going to say that was an absolute steal. And obviously, people have their issues with Jakob saying, he can't finish or he can't shoot. And there's just so much more to basketball, shooting and, being able to dunk a ball. I mean, there's so much more to it. And all the numbers show that he's somebody who impacts winning in almost every single way. He's one of the best defenders on the team. He's a great passer for his size, and he just understands how to play basketball. So I'm super happy that he's back.
Yeah, what about you, Ty? I know that you were battling a horde of Spurs fans here that wanted to argue with you, but I mean, honestly, what did you think about the Jakob Poeltl signing?
I thought this was probably the most significant, most important signing that the Spurs could have done this offseason, at least in terms of what we knew the Spurs needed to do going into this offseason. And the number one item on that list was re-sign Jakob Poeltl. The impact on the floor that this guy has on both ends of the court is just tremendous. Even though it might not show up in points, he does so much more than points. And Noah even said this on our latest podcast, where he led the league in most screen assists. And that's just kind of a great indication of what he does outside of everything else. He screens for everyone. He, per 100 possession, it almost has like 5 assists. So and the points that he's not making up there, he's making up in getting the ball to his teammates and making assists. He can clean the glass. He can do all sorts of other stuff. And then everyone likes to criticize 2 things: his finishing and his jump shot. His jump shot, I can't say anything else about. But it's also, besides, that's not his role. He's not meant to shoot. He's a center that does almost everything else really exceptionally. He just doesn't have an outside shot. But he doesn't really need to have an outside shot when he's doing so well. And then the other part of his finishing, yeah, he might not be dunking the ball, but if you watch some of his play inside, he's one of the most crafty layup big men I've seen in my life. That dude can maneuver around defenders like no one's business at his size and still finish the ball in tremendous field goal fashion. I believe he had the franchise record for highest field goal percentage in a season for the Spurs. And it's because he is such a crafty layup. I don't know what you call that. What do you call that? A layup man?
He's a crafty finisher. He has good touch around the rim. And, one of the things that I looked up, because Spurs fans want to say, oh, well, he doesn't finish, he doesn't dunk. he finished in the 70th percentile in the league at field goal percentage in the restricted area. And just for reference, guys who finished in that area, Kristaps Porzingis, Montrezl Harrell, Aaron Gordon, Brook Lopez, Ben Simmons, those are all guys who are known to finish well around the rim. The only reason you're seeing Jakob get any flack for this is because he didn't dunk a few times. So overblown.
Yeah, but he does set the screen like nobody's business. He's a great screener, comes out, helps his teammates, runs the floor well, can pass the ball well, great in the little pick and pop situations, especially, like I said, with Derek and DeJounte coming up to the top of the key, setting a little screen. They go around. He goes and rolls out, just going straight to the basket. They go ahead and just pop the ball to him. Easy layup, easy dunk. You love that. Or he's going to go ahead and get fouled and go to the stripe. So this is smart basketball by the San Antonio Spurs, and Jakob is an instrumental piece to that because he plays so well with this young core.
And then the other thing is, too, and I think everyone has heard this stat from me, and Noah, you're probably hearing this for the 20th time from me, but if you look at his per 100 possession stats, his offensive and defensive ratings, he has a net rating of 17. Because the offensive rating is one of the best on the team at 125 and has the best defensive rating at 108 on the team. Again, whenever he's on the floor, he makes the team better just because he's out there. Because he's a great teammate, first off, and he knows how to play team ball. He doesn't need the touches to be effective out there.
Exactly. So having Jakob back was the first shoe to fall, kind of, sort of speak, and it just set things up for what was to come. Another signing that I thought was really telling is that the Spurs quietly re-signed one Trey Lyles. His contract became fully guaranteed. I think it was at midnight of November the 19th going into the early mornings of November 20th. So that was a quiet signing that kind of went under the radar, unnoticed really, until the next morning when we saw the media starting to put that out and say it was official. And then we saw Trey Lyles go to Twitter and announce that he was returning to the San Antonio Spurs. I really like this. I mean, Trey Lyles to me was another piece that we needed to have on this team. Again, he plays well out there, especially with the young core. So that's the kind of the theme that we need to understand here. The Spurs are going to go full on youth movement. You need some of these other pieces that kind of are very cohesive and they gel well with our younger pieces. And I feel Trey Lyles is one of those pieces. What was your thoughts on that, Noah?
Yeah, I mean, Trey Lyles had that team option, so the Spurs pretty much all they had to do was nothing, right? They just had to say nothing, and then he came back, and I'm happy for him to be back. But Trey Lyles to me isn't super instrumental to this team. He adds a little bit of, he's a stretch four. He's a decent defender, but to me, it's just nice to have some continuity because you're right. He did gel with those young guys, and he started really lighting it up from three-point range following, the second half of the season. He was doing really well, and then we didn't get to see what he could have brought in the bubble, but I think he could have helped them out, especially when it comes to spacing the floor. So, having somebody back who can be a rotational piece like he is never a bad thing, especially when they have familiarity with the other young pieces that you're trying to build chemistry with.
Yeah, and I think you kind of hit the nail right on the head there. He's a great mid-range jump shooter, and he can also kind of stretch, the opposing team's defense by hitting a three every now and then. So that's not a bad trait to have. Plus, you can go ahead and play decent enough defense. He knows the system well. He can find the open man. So you just like everything that there is to say about Trey Lyles. He's a great player for the San Antonio Spurs. Kind of a jack of all trades in my book. What were you thinking? No, I mean, Ty.
Wow, calling me Noah as if I wasn't calling Noah Nick and Nick Noah in our draft live stream. But no, I think Trey Lyles. Honestly, I've said this before. I think if the Spurs had Trey Lyles going to the bubble, I think they could have made that playoffs just because the size that he adds there, his ability to stretch the floor, shot 38% from deep this season, 44 from the field and overall. And then, like we always said, like last year's team was very inconsistent. I think he was one of the few consistencies on that team last season where he played almost every game. I'm pretty sure he played every game that I can think of. Yeah, he played 63 games. So he played almost every game that he could have out there. Was really consistent in terms of what he was bringing to the floor. And then add on, once he started lighting up from three, he became even more instrumental, at least to the offense. But I think I think it was already known that the Spurs were going to keep him. He outplayed his contract last season, and he just really showed that he can be a consistent performer for this team. So, and that's what you need. Like you guys said, this is need. You need players that don't need the touches, that fit into their role player type mentality and really help your team overall, because you have primary pieces but you need the pieces to go along with them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I think
exactly.
for me, I'd like to see Trey be a little bit more consistent. The first half of the season, he only shot about 33% from three, not very good. But then, like I said, over the second half of the year, the last 20 games that he played, shot 46% from three on three attempts. So if he can, kind of meet us in the middle and shoot about 40% throughout the entire season, I think he's much more valuable than being, hot and cold, kind of like we saw from Bryn Forbes. And to me, Trey Lyles can be instrumental to this team if he's able to knock down those threes consistently. Otherwise, he can kind of be a wild card, somebody who you're not sure if they're going to help you or hurt you on any given night.
Yeah, somebody's asking me, am I going to have a Spurs roundtable with Chris Duell? That's in the works, actually. I would love to have Chris Duell. We'll probably wind up doing something virtually, of course, but I'll definitely let you know, John Williams, when that comes to fruition. So, one of the things I was going to talk about too, since we're going to kind of segue now to our next segment, is talking about some of the players that the Spurs waived. One of them being Chimezie Metu. I love the guy, great guy, but over the course of me watching him as far as his development goes, watching him over at the Austin Spurs and watching him here and seeing how he developed with the San Antonio Spurs in a game time situation, he just never developed into that type of player I believe that the Spurs were wanting. He was very sporadic. It was hard for him to get minutes. Then when he was given minutes, he didn't really look too fresh out there. It kind of looked a little lost at times. Never kind of developed into that player that the Spurs were wanting, even though they did put in a lot of time and effort into him. Played great in, with the Austin G League. That just never translated into NBA minutes. So I think it was time, unfortunately. Great guy overall. Wish him the best, and wherever he lands, I think he can still play. He just needs to maybe develop, and maybe he'll have better luck in a different system. The second waiver was Bryn Forbes, and everybody's always telling me how much I hate Bryn Forbes. I don't hate Bryn Forbes. He's a defensive liability, yes, and like we talked about, the issue that I have is that I understand that Bryn Forbes is out there to score buckets. That's basically why Pop has him out there. Shoot a mid-range jumper, shoot threes, and if he plays defense, so be it. But, I mean, we all saw what happened as far as him being out there on the floor trying to play defense. He would get blown by. He would get baked underneath the rim, in the paint. He was getting cooked. That's why I gave him the nickname Barbecue. But I wish Bryn the best. Honestly, I wish him the best. He's getting a great opportunity to go over there with the Bucks, play for a chip, and he's going to play for a great team and also a team that has a Spurs connection in their coach. So I think he's going to do a great job over there. But I think it was time for the Spurs to actually move on from both of these players. I think that was a smart move in my book. So, Ty, what did you think? I think we lost Ty now. He's frozen in time. Oh, there, you're coming back now, Ty.
Is he back?
Are you
All
back?
right, I'm back. Sorry. My internet decided to say, nah, I didn't want to work for a second. So
I was asking you what you thought about the waiver of one, Chimezie Metu, and two, Bryn Forbes.
all right, so I missed the question part, but I got this. So with Chimezie, he just didn't translate. He just didn't really translate into the NBA. He did exceptional in the Austin, did great stuff in the G League, and was putting up some really significant numbers. However, it didn't never really translated, and I think the biggest issue that he had was being disciplined with his game. He wasn't really able to prevent turnovers. He kept committing them at a really high rate, and it really did not help him in any way. And I think that's the biggest reason why he didn't really translate, because he would make turnovers. He would have some really sloppy play, and then also add on that every time I feel like every time I saw him play, he always committed goaltending in some sort of fashion. So for Chimezie, I just didn't think it was going to work out. I think that he could really flourish in a different type of system. I just think the Spurs were not the good fit for him overall. With Bryn Forbes, again, it goes back to a fit where I just didn't think he really fit here. And especially on a team that was desperately needing defense. And Noah, you said it right again on our podcast, where Pop just didn't play him right. And it really hurt the team overall, just in the way that the role that he had. That role that he had with the Spurs as a starting shooting guard, that was not the fit that he needed in any sort of way. And unfortunately, it really hurt us, and it really put a sour taste in Spurs fans' mouth about Bryn Forbes.
Yeah, we have a question here from Free Agency Season on on Periscope. He's watching on Twitter right there on Periscope. He's saying the issue was he asked to do more than he could. And they're referring to Chimezie Metu. And it's just like you were saying, Noah.
Yeah, well, like I guess for me, Chimezie Metu, I always thought he was a very interesting, like from a physical perspective. He can jump out of the gym. He's got really long arms. He moves pretty well. But to me, it's like the feel for the game wasn't necessarily there. The game never really slowed down for him once he got to the NBA. And even in the G League, you kind of see like obviously he got the steals, he got some blocks, but at the end of the day, he was kind of a net negative on the defensive end. He was often out of place. He was turned around. He would ball watch. And to me, that's just not something you can do in the G League, and it's especially not going to fly in the NBA. So maybe he has success elsewhere, but I'm not really banking on Chimezie Metu to be, a starter level player, maybe a role player down the road. But I'm wishing him the best of luck because I really did like him. He seemed like a nice kid. Came from a good program in USC, so I'm hoping he does well. But only time will tell. And then as far as Bryn Forbes, I think we pretty much covered that as much as we can, right? I mean, he was a guy who Spurs fans, they soured on him. They soured on him really quick. But I'd like to remind everybody, Bryn Forbes didn't play himself 25 minutes per night or make him the starting shooting guard. Greg Popovich did. And I love Pop, but that was a stubborn move. He kept him there all season, even when they didn't need to, even after Derek broke out, even when, when Derek and DeJounte could have played together throughout the year. And I know people are saying, where's this three-point shooting going to come from? But there's just so many other options on this roster who I think just need the opportunity. So I'm not worried about Bryn, going elsewhere. And I'm happy for him, too, because I think in a reduced role, he can be really effective, especially when he's surrounded by people who are really good defenders that the Bucks have. Because playing him next to Patty, playing him next to Marco, sometimes all three together at the same time, that was just a recipe for disaster.
Now I'm going to ask. Go ahead, Ty.
I was going to add something because I know that people usually they get concerned of, oh, well, what is Spurs going to do with their 3-point shooting? And I even mentioned this in our own podcast. Like, don't worry. Derek White really stepped up on his 3-point shooting going into the bubble. And I'm not sure that you'll see it at that volume, but it's really encouraging seeing that he improved his shooting going into the bubble. But before the bubble, during the regular season, Derek White attempted only about 2.6 threes a game on 35% shooting, while Bryn Forbes was in the rotation shooting majority of the threes.
Yeah, going into the bubble, Johnson was good too in the bubble from beyond.
Yeah, and then going into the bubble, whenever Bryn Forbes didn't play a single minute, Derek White went up from 2.6 attempts a game to 8 attempts a game and shooting at 39% 3-point shooting. So if you're going to, I think there's guys that are capable of becoming 3-point volume shooters, and Derek White is certainly one of them.
Yeah, they just need the minutes.
Not all of them have to be, not all of them have to be creating, off the dribble, shooting off the bounce. A lot of it is catch and shoot, by design. So if you look at guys like DeJounte Murray, Keldon Johnson, Derek White, even if you want to throw in Luka Šamanić, if you think he might get minutes, and throw in Trey Lyles there as well, they're all guys who shoot at or above 40% on catch and shoot from three. So as long as you've got a guy like, DeMar DeRozan or even Derek White penetrating and then kicking it to wide open guys on the perimeter, there are going to be guys who can make up for it. Because let's be honest, Bryn Forbes was not taking people off the dribble, shooting off the dribble. He was catch and shoot. That was pretty much his only specialty there. So I think that they're going to find that everywhere. And DeJounte, knowing how he's improved every single off season, I think that he'll be even better as a catch and shoot guy heading into, I guess, what will be his 5th year.
Yeah. So there are other players that we have on the roster, that can shoot a 3. Now, the 3 might not be our strong suit like in years past. We'll shoot 3s, but it's not going to be as many 3s as other teams because that's not really a strength that we have right now. The Spurs, if you look at the stats, have shot probably, as far as their percentage goes, probably one of the higher percentages of all teams when it comes to the mid-range game. And that's what they're going to go to most of the time, even going into this season. So for better or for worse, they're going to stick with what works for them.
And then last season, the Spurs were 28th in 3-point attempts, but they were 4th in the league in 3-point percentage. So they're not taking as many threes, but they are making those threes whenever they do take them.
Yeah. So it goes to show that they're efficient, because they're not taking a ton of threes like, say, a Houston Rockets team that just chunks them up in spades.
And I think efficiency should outrank volume because it's quality over quantity.
Yeah, exactly. So let's go ahead and move on here a little bit, and let's talk. And I want to talk about this because I found this interesting because I was looking at the Vegas odds makers, and this kind of struck a chord with a lot of Spurs fans. Spurs fans feel that this team is good enough to make the playoffs, especially since it's going to be a shortened season. You know, instead of was it 82 games? I think it's something like 72 games because of the late start to the season. That's why they're having the play-in game. You know, to kind of balance things out, which I understand. But Spurs fans, they're kind of delusional in a way where they're like, oh, the Spurs are going to be able to make the 7th or 8th seed, no problem. Not necessarily, with the team they have. And I think that the Vegas odds makers were kind of spot on with their guesstimation of the number of wins that the Spurs realistically could have going into the season. Now, if they over exceed expectations, that's a plus. But anywhere from 28.5 all the way up to the max, which was 35 games, to me, that's kind of a realistic expectation. Now, you're going into this next draft class that you have. So if the Spurs don't necessarily make the playoffs, that's not a bad thing, and then you want the development of the younger players. So they need to get minutes and they need to get experience, so you got to kind of pick and choose what you want. You want the younger players out there? I'm all for it too, but that comes with an experience. They're only going to get better if they get the minutes. So that's what we have to expect. They're going to have some growing pains, so to me, there's no need to tank, especially with this next coming draft class, which is stacked. I think the Spurs are in a good position right now. They did all the smart things they needed to do in the offseason, didn't overextend themselves, didn't overpay for players, kept who they needed, got rid of who they needed to. So to me, the team's in a great position. Noah, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mentioned to Ty yesterday on the podcast, Spurs are kind of in a really convenient situation where it's a win-win either way. If they make the playoffs and they surprise everybody, then your young core is ahead of schedule, right? And they're getting that playoff experience, which is awesome. But I also don't want them to become like an Orlando Magic, where you constantly are in the 7th seed or the 8th seed and you're always a first-round exit. That's not a good place to be in. But if they do make the lottery, this is, like you said, it's an absolutely stacked draft class. And to me, if you get rid of LaMarcus, if you get rid of DeMar, you end up getting assets, draft assets, or even second rounders. You have that capital in a really, really solid class. And the guys from probably 1 through 10, there's probably about 5 to 6 franchise guys, with one guy being better than all of them, Cade Cunningham. I'm going to start that hashtag fade for Cade if the Spurs end up going on a huge, downfall spiral. But for now, Cade Cunningham's a guy to watch. In fact, I already recorded his first college game. It's on right now. He's playing UTA, so I'm excited to see that. But the Spurs are in a great position because if you add one of those young talents to what the Spurs already have in their young core, I think you're set to contend for a really long time. And if you don't, and you end up making the playoffs, then you make the playoffs, you get the experience, you free up all that cap space, and you can sign potentially a free agent who may be attracted by all these young assets who are talented. So to me, it's a win-win situation for the Spurs. There's only a few scenarios where they can really hurt themselves, and to me, that's really better than they were last season.
Yeah. And Ty, what were you gonna say? I know you got something to say.
I was gonna say, you can see how much school spirit I have to not even realize that UTA was playing basketball today. I did not know that my school was playing basketball today, and against Cade Cunningham of all people. So that's how much school spirit I have, and how much I really am aware of college basketball at this moment.
No, man. I recorded another podcast earlier today for Project Spurs, and I was talking with John Diaz and also with our good friend Benjamin Bornstein, and he was naming some of the picks, his picks, because I was telling him, well, this is the list that Noah had. So he was letting me know some picks that he was keeping an eye on, and Spurs fans should keep an eye on. So I'm going to ask you the same thing, since you're one of these guys that loves looking at these potential picks. Who do Spurs fans need to keep an eye on?
Yeah, so to me, like I said, Cade Cunningham is like the prize that you want overall. And then second for me would be Brandon Boston. I think he's such a versatile guard, and I know Spurs don't want another guard, but this guy is, to me, another almost generational talent. He's better than anybody else who is on this roster right now at guard. And then we got Jonathan Kuminga. We've got guys like Evan Mobley, if you're interested in a big man. He's a center who kind of space the floor, do a few different things. I like him quite a bit. You got a guy like Usman Garuba, who's playing in Spain right now. He's a very, very defensive, has some versatility on the offensive end. So there's a ton of guys. I mean, there really are a ton of guys in this class. And I just think if you're in the lottery, you're in a much better situation than you were last year in terms of the lottery. Devin Vassell is a great pick. I'm really excited for him. I think he has a lot of potential. But to me, everybody who's in the top 14 of my class right now, as of the preseason, is already better than anybody who was taking in the lottery this year. And to me, that just speaks volume to the talent at the top of this class.
Yeah, and if the Spurs manage to win anywhere from 32 to 35 games, they could easily find themselves right back in, a top 10, maybe 11th, maybe even higher than that, depending on what's going on. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. I would, in fact, would love them to only win 32 plus games and get back into the NBA draft and maybe get a top 10 pick. That could actually change the dynamic of the team moving forward,
Yeah, and it hurts to lose. It hurts to lose, and I hate seeing teams lose. But sometimes you got to do it for the better of the organization. And I'm saying, like, tanking is obviously scummy, right? You don't want to see teams tank intentionally. But if you hand the keys to the young guys, and it turns out their inexperience and their inability to lead a team to the playoffs is their downfall, oh well, you get them experience, you get them touches, and you just tanked organically without being a scumbag. So it's like like I said, there's so many situations where the Spurs win at the end of the season. I just am very optimistic for their future.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you something, Ty. I know that Jeff had put up a video that he had yesterday of Jakob Portal, because he was invited, with all the other people in the media to come and have this kind of impromptu media session, kind of like they were talking with Jakob, asking him questions. And if I remember correctly, didn't Jakob say something about the team moving forward to sign Derek White?
Yeah, so it's he didn't say it straight up or anything like that, but he kind of alluded that him and Derek have been talking about what those two could be going forward. So most likely it's going to be a Derek White extension. Also, I just kind of thinking how Derek interacts with his teammates. I just don't see him going anywhere. He seems to enjoy this. He is a main option on this team no matter what. And then also thinking moving forward that you are possibly going to be losing LaMarcus and DeMar even to free agency at the least going into the future. So Derek could easily become one of the top options on this team. So it's like, why would you go anywhere else, especially if you could be the spearhead of this team? But I was going to say that I think that this team can be competitive. I think that guesstimation from Vegas is a bit low, because I just think this team can be competitive. Like Noah said, and I said in the podcast, it's a win-win season no matter what. If this team is really good because we did addition to this team by subtraction. We got rid of Marco and Bryn, and that makes the team a whole lot better in terms of defense. So I think this team's actually better than what it was. It's definitely going to be better than it was last season. And last season was kind of even a borderline playoff team. But so I think this team can become better. But for say that you do hand the keys off and it just does not go well in any sort of way, you're a student driver, you crash into a pole and you're like, well, shit. Then it's fine, because you're going to have money to get a Lamborghini in Cade Cunningham. So or get some other high-end sports car within the draft. But again, no matter which way the season goes, it's going to be good for the Spurs in the future. I just hate it to go down one route because I do not want to lose. I hate losing. I hate being depressed for damn weeks after a single loss. I did not need this on me. Again, Noah is available for therapy. He's going to be helping with any Spurs fans. If the Spurs do start losing, Noah's going to help everyone with therapy. Don't worry. We'll all get through this. If we start losing, if we start winning, we're all going to go honking. Don't worry. Yeah. But I think the season is going to be. I think the season is going to be a good season, just in terms of how competitive this team could be.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a season of growth, especially for the young core. That's basically what I'm focused on, and what the story is going to be this season is pay attention to how this young core develops and the experience that they're getting, because that's going to dictate what's going to happen for the future of the San Antonio Spurs. It's a good thing. And, I've been a fan for many years. I was here in the dark times before we had David Robinson. And then when we got David Robinson, even the fact that they were able to draft him, and then they started putting pieces around him, it was a slow process. There was a lot of heartache, a lot of disappointment. And then finally, once they drafted Tim Duncan, you get to the promised land. You get over that hump. You wind up beating the Los Angeles Lakers, and you go on and you do what nobody expected you to do, and that's win it all. And I think that's going to happen here too. You just need that time to develop, and that's what we're in right now. So you got to be a fan of the game no matter what, and you got to support your team. It goes along with the territory. It happens to everybody.
Yeah, everybody has to rebuild at some point. And it's like, if without Tim Duncan, the Spurs haven't lost enough to get Tim Duncan or David Robinson, there is no dynasty. So sometimes you got to suffer a little bit to have that, the glory of being a dynasty, of winning championships. And I know people want that immediate gratification of getting right into the playoffs or getting right into contention. And I'm just telling you right now, this team may be competitive. They're not a title contender. They're definitely not a title contender. You kind of got to weigh your options. Do you want to be those Orlando Magic that I was talking about a few minutes ago, or do you want to be a team that tanks maybe organically and then gets that guy that is able to lead you to the promised land? And I think if you have to pick between those, I'm always going to take the guy who leads you to a title.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, we could always sign and trade DeMar next offseason and get that first round pick. I'm going to assume the Knicks are willing to do something that stupid. I guarantee it, but also knowing the Knicks, they're going to fall to 10th in the draft somehow.
Yeah, and let's be honest here. A lot of Spurs fans, they were upset with the team because the team was not able to unload, one, DeMar DeRozan, two, they didn't get rid of LaMarcus. And the thing is that there's no rush to do that. And I had stated before, there's no need to make a bad trade, because we have all the way up until February at the trade deadline for them to do something. And as we have spoken, behind the scenes here, teams get desperate when they have injuries. If something was to happen to another team, they could actually just throw a whole bunch of picks or throw, somebody else at the Spurs, and that they find that attractive and they'll pull the trigger on a trade. But there's no need to rush things. Just let it happen organically. And if they walk for nothing, that's okay too. This frees up cap space, as we had talked about, for the Spurs to go after a free agent next season. So it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that frustrates me most with the Spurs fan base, and I love Spurs fans. I'm a fan myself. I've been guilty of it in the past, but we cannot say DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge are trash and they got to get off the team, and then say, well, why haven't we traded them for an All-Star? Why haven't we traded them for 2, 3, 4 first-round picks? Well, if they're trash, why would anybody in the NBA who has good basketball minds working for a front office do that? We can't play both ends. We can't have our cake and eat it too. So we got to be realistic. And Joe's absolutely right. You don't need a deal right now. There will be teams that are contending or think that they're in a position to contend who might offer you a first-round pick for LaMarcus at the trade deadline, or maybe they offer you a young piece in a second rounder, whatever it is, or even if you lose him for nothing and DeMar as well, I don't think that's the end of the world either, because you're right. You do get that extra cap space, which they're going to need if they want to try to chase after somebody in free agency or sign their own guys and keep them in-house.
Yeah, and then it goes back to addition by subtraction too, where even if you do lose a guy like LaMarcus or DeMar for little to no return, the biggest thing that you're getting is that open roster spot within the rotation. And that means that you can elevate guys further. You can move Yaka back into the starting rotation. You can have a guy like Drew Eubanks finally enter the rotation as a man off the bench. You get a lot more minutes and you get a lot of touches. That's what we saw in the bubble, where this team got better by subtracting guys out of the rotation, aka Bryn and LaMarcus. LaMarcus not really being the option, but just because he was injured. But you're going to see improvements from this team if you get rid of them. But as a result, if you're trying to trade these guys for other big name all-stars, they're just going to take that. They're just going to replace LaMarcus in the rotation. You're not going to get anything from your young guys, and you're just going to be stuck in the same cycle once again. And you might be even taking on more money, which is going to hurt you against the cap. It's going to hurt you going into free agency. It's going to hurt you in trying to re-sign your young guys that are going to probably want a little bit more money, because I think I can definitely say that Keldon Johnson is definitely going to want a big extension, because I think he's going to be much better than any of these guys in the next 2-3 years. And he's going to have a big payday coming up after his rookie extension. So if you're trying to get a huge return for these guys, like Noah said, you can't say that, oh, these guys are just absolute trash, they're dog shit and all that, and then expect, oh, what, this team is not going to give us 20 first-round picks like we're the Thunder? What is this blasphemy? It's not going to work like that. Be realistic in your trade expectations. Know what teams are wanting and what they will give for them, and also look at the money situation, because no one likes to look at the money situation. And then two, remember what your goal is on this team. You're trying to get rid of these guys so you can allow your younger guys to come up and become a vital part of the rotation, not just to replace LaMarcus, because that's not what your goal is.
Yeah, so I wanted to go ahead and start transitioning here as we bring this show to a close here. We're going to talk about something that really nobody's focused on or nobody's really talked about yet. And that is one, Coach Pop. And I had told you guys before we came on here, one of the scenarios that could happen this year realistically is Coach Pop just plays his last season coaching the San Antonio Spurs. Season's over and he just says, okay, I'm out. I'm going to retire. He's not going to announce it, much like Tim Duncan did. They're just going to say at the end of the season, I'm out. I'm done. And then you're going to wait for an announcement to come. Oh, he's going to come back. That might not happen. We could really, guys, you have to realistically appreciate the greatness that is Coach Pop and really watch every single game and appreciate what's happening, because you might not see him out there on that court again. The end is coming, and it could either be this season or it could be next season. Either way, he's not going to announce it. It's just going to happen, and you're never going to see the end coming. So what I'm saying is appreciate what you have right now, because this is history in the making. We might not ever have a coach like this come to the San Antonio Spurs again. While we might have a really good, solid coach, there will never be another Greg Popovich. So appreciate this season for what it is. Your thoughts if Coach Pop decides to call it quits, Noah?
Yeah, well, first I'll be pretty sad because Coach Pop has been, he's been the coach since pretty much I've been in diapers, right? So from the second I became a Spurs fan to even now when we had a frustrating season and all the championships in between, he's the only thing I've known, as the head coach of the Spurs. And, for as much as we may complain or say he's stubborn or, whatever the case is with different fans from different, walks of life, like at the end of the day, I think everybody's going to be a little bit sad that he's gone because he really represents, at least to me, being at the pinnacle of your sport. He's not just a great coach. He's an outstanding human being who stands for human rights, and he wants to be a part of the community, and he wants to help out the community. And I just don't think that you're going to see someone, not necessarily just caliber of coach, but a caliber of human being come through this organization and be the head coach again, because he really is special from just so many different angles.
Yeah. What about you, Noah? Sorry. No, Ty, I'm thinking about Noah and I'm looking at you.
It's a payback. This is payback for making like Nick and Noah all swapped up.
Yeah.
No, well, I thought it's coming. We're getting there. We've always had speculation about this for the past 5 years now. Just kind of like the same where he's like, when's Tim Duncan going to retire? When's Manu going to retire? It's same thing is going to happen with Pop. When is Pop going to retire? And we've been saying this for about 5 years now. It's going to be a shock once it happens, but it's not going to be no surprise, of course. And I think, and you do hear people trashing on Pop, but I think everyone also forgets the Spurs probably would not be where they are without Pop. Pop is the reason. Pop took over the team as team president and coach back in 1996, whenever they were going through that horrible season with injuries. He took over at that moment. And then ever since, this team has won 5 championships, six finals appearances, and just a load of 22 straight playoff appearances. That's because of Pop and the foundation that he laid out as president of this team and president of basketball operations. So the Spurs, as much as you will give him crap for how he's running rotations at this moment, you have to accept the fact that the Spurs would not be the Spurs that we now know and love if it wasn't for him and for the legacy that he's going to leave in the sport of basketball. Not only as a amazing coach, not also as a president of a basketball organization, but as the person that he was and the impact that he made on every single player that went through his organization and every single player that played against them. And I think everyone can agree, as fans, as players, as other executives and stuff within the NBA, they will all say that Pop is one of the greatest people there could be out there. And everyone, I think we're all going to be appreciative of that legacy once it ends, because you never miss it as much as you do until it's gone.
Yeah, so exactly. We're all going to miss him, but we know that the end is coming, and it's going to come abruptly. So just go into every season appreciating that you have another season watching the great Greg Popovich out there on the sideline calling the shots. We wouldn't be where we're at without him. He's the one that brought the Spurs culture, this culture that every other NBA team has tried to emulate. And it's no mistake that the Spurs have been in the playoffs or were in the playoffs for 20 plus years. You know, they are the epitome of excellence of what every other team tries to aspire to be. So that wouldn't happen without the great Greg Popovich. So definitely going to enjoy this season for what it is. And I'm going to enjoy Coach Pop giving the media trouble, you know, giving them the eye, you know, and playing around with them and making them feel dumb. I mean, it's all fun. I mean, he has his good days and his bad days, just like anybody else. He's human, you know. So I'm gonna miss those little hot takes that Coach Pop has.
And I think we mentioned this on our own podcast where Pop has made mistakes before. He's not a perfect coach, and he learned from his mistakes. And I think that one of the things that you're going to be seeing going into this season is that, well, you even saw last season where he made the mistake of playing Bryn within the rotation. Then going into the bubble, he apparently watched all this tape while during the off time and learned his lessons. Like, shit, I cannot be playing Bryn at all at this point. And he didn't play Bryn at all in the bubble. And look where that team got. Look what that team did in the bubble and how much better that team was. And Pop had made I forgot what example that you did know the other night, and remind me after this, but Pop is just like everyone else. He's going to make mistakes, but he's better than most people and learns from them.
Yeah, and I completely agree. And I think one other thing that Spurs fans forget, like I'm sure a lot of old heads probably remember, but when Pop fired Bob Hill and then took over for him, there was some backlash after that because Bob Hill was a very successful coach with the Spurs. Like Pop put his career on the line. If that didn't work out, like he's not getting another job in the NBA period after that. That's just a fact. And the way he was able to bet on himself and then follow through on all these promises of potential with Tim Duncan, with Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, and getting all these championships, even the 99 and 2003 championships with David Robinson as part of the team. If that doesn't happen, he's gone. So to me, a huge risk, huge reward. He's a legend for doing something that bold and then being able to follow through with it to the highest capacity. So I have nothing but respect for Pop. Yes, he was stubborn. Yes, we definitely were frustrated with him last season, but at the end of the day, he's a coaching legend. He's someone who has more experience in basketball than any of us do. He's going to forget more about basketball than we could ever learn by the time it's all said and done. And I really do believe that he will learn from his mistakes and he will implement a more young, fast-paced style of basketball next season. So, if he doesn't, you can hold me to it. You can bash me, but I really do believe Pop is going to improve upon what we saw last year.
And then also add on the thing that where with him, it's always been a defensive-minded team. And the only time that we've not seen this throughout his whole career has been the past 2 seasons after he was forced to trade Kawhi and Danny Green, the best 2 defenders on the team. And they've been kind of trying to recover from that. And Pop's been doing his best. And I think that you're going to see a return to form this season just based on the personnel that you have and the lack of defensive liabilities in Bryn Forbes and Marco Bellinelli. I just think that you actually might see a return to form season for Pop in terms of the way he's going to coach and how this team is going to perform. And this could be a walking to the sunset type season where he has a really good season, comes back from missing the playoffs for the first time in his career, at least in the past 22 years, and leave a really defensive minded team that's ready for the future once he retires.
Yeah. So we're going to go ahead and bring this show to a close here because I got to go pick up my Thanksgiving dinner from Rudy's Barbecue. It's ready.
Damn, you got barbecue? Shit.
It's actually a smoked turkey that I got. So I'm excited.
You're still showing out though. That sounds good.
Yeah. It's going to be really good. They're smoked turkeys to die for, dude. So I can't wait. I got to go pick that up. But before we go ahead and bring the show to a close, I'm going to ask you all a question real quick. Ty.
Hit me.
After you stuff your face with turkey, what's your go-to dessert?
I don't know. Sometimes I don't really care for Thanksgiving food, honestly, but it's like, I know that's my hot take. That's my hot take of the day. You can roast me for this one. I don't care. But it's like my go-to on Thanksgiving are rolls and turkey. It's just 2 solid choices. But you know what? I think the dessert that everyone should have is Christmas cookies, Bluebell ice cream.
Oh, okay.
That's my dessert. Again,
Nice
because
choice.
once Thanksgiving's ended, It's the holiday season, baby.
There you go. And what about you, Noah? What's your go-to?
Oh, my mom makes this really good blackberry cobbler. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to spin it with my parents, but I'm going to try to recreate it myself. Hopefully, she sends me that, and it's half as good because that is so delicious. You get that nice and hot with some, bluebell ice cream, or oh my god, like any ice cream with that is amazing. So I'm just looking forward to that. Hopefully, it's half as good as what my mom can do. We will see.
Yeah, my go-to is I make a pumpkin pie and I also make an apple pie with my daughter. That's our tradition. And I got to tell you, man, that apple pie, the fresh apple pie with just a little dollop of vanilla ice cream on top and just a little splash of Cool Whip. Wow, man, that's heaven.
It sounds good.
Yeah. So where can they follow you, Noah, on Twitter? I was kind enough to put the Twitter handle here. So everybody, you're watching this show, the whole show, you can see where you can follow Noah. But Noah, for those who weren't paying attention, where can they follow
Yeah,
you?
if you didn't see it, it's at @N_Magaro, Magaro, and go ahead and find my work at Pounding the Rock as well. And if you want to check out some really cool Spurs video content, I got a YouTube channel. I'm doing everything from rookie breakdowns to film breakdowns to mailbag. So if you want to send me questions, I do all that stuff, and it's just my name. So if you know my name, look me up, and I'm on YouTube.
Yeah, and Ty, where can they follow you on Twitter?
You can follow me at the Ty Jager. That's the Ty Jager. I make it easy for you guys. Don't worry. I'm also I get away from YouTube. I don't even try that. That's all Noah's. I'm staying on Noah's territory. Instead, I'm doing Twitch. So I'm doing some Twitch live streams occasionally now. You can find that at twitch.tv/the Ty Jager. And of course, Noah and I both do a podcast together. That's At The Line. You can find that on Twitter at the Line Pod, or at thelinepodcast.com, or wherever you get your podcast. We just released an episode last night. It took me forever in terms of the editing for technical issues. Thanks, computer. I love you so much for just not doing your job. But you can find that wherever you get your podcast. We kind of do a similar thing of we review the re-signings and talk a little bit more about this upcoming season.
And there you go. And you can also follow me on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and on Twitter. And it's all spelled out Two Shots Podcast, TWOSHOTS Podcast. So for Ty and Noah, I'm Joe Garcia. Thank you guys for watching our live stream of the Two Shots Podcast. And like we always say, spread the love, stop the hate, be kind. We're out. Peace.